Welcome to the first episode of Movie Talk. This is the show where we talk about movies and TV way too much. I am your host, Matt Monroe, and today we are joined by Joe McLaughlin. Joe, thank you so much for joining me, and how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate you being the first guest.
I know.
And the first movie we are talking about is You People, which we will get to in just a second here, but I just want to ask a couple questions. What are some of your favorite movies?
Oh, gosh. I have a lot of favorite movies, but I think the one that is my all-time favorite is Terms of Endearment.
That's right.
It makes me cry every time, so we
were talking about this. I actually have not seen that movie yet.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I've heard so many great things about it, though, and I'm one of those people who I cry way too much in movies. I'll admit it. The other day, I was watching the first Creed, and I was just crying my eyes out with Rocky. And but yeah, no, I got to sit down and watch that at some point, and maybe it's a future review.
Yeah. Well, it's an old movie, but it's a classic.
Right. Totally. I'm sure there's a ton of people who hadn't seen it being a classic.
Yeah.
Now let's get on to You People.
I'm sorry. This was insane. Let me make it up to you.
You're dating a black girl?
I've never felt so understood by somebody in my entire life.
Whether you like it or not, we kind of go together now.
You're my boo. Come on.
We both kind of have talked about this movie prior to recording this, and I'll say it right out the gate. Neither of us really liked it.
No.
Yeah,
Well, it was interesting in the way that it was about a biracial couple, also about their religious differences. I think the recipe was there. The development wasn't there.
Yeah, I just want to start real quick on some positives. Although, like I said, we weren't a big fan of this movie. I still just like to talk. There's still things in this movie that are good. And although you had an issue with Eddie Murphy's performance, I thought he was okay. He's not great. I thought all the other cast did great. And to me, the big standout in this movie is Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Oh, absolutely.
She was the only real character who had me really laughing.
Yes.
Really, laughing out loud, tears coming down. I was chuckling.
Her lines to Jonah Hill when she first met the girlfriend
are just.
I mean, the awkwardness of the family, and then, but then aside from that, when she takes Jonah Hill's character aside and starts talking with him. Supposedly talking reason to him.
Yeah, but
it was not reasonable.
No, it wasn't.
But hilarious.
Yeah, it wasn't at all. She really had me on the floor. And same with Jonah Hill and Lauren London. I keep on wanting to say Laura London. Lauren London played the girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
I forget her name in the movie now. At the moment. But,
I do too.
She's someone I actually don't recognize, and I thought she did a great job. I thought her and Jonah Hill's chemistry was actually very nice at points.
It was good, but they didn't develop the relationship. They went straight from a first date to living together.
To marriage.
Like there was, to marriage, and it was like, maybe it took a few months or whatever, but the development wasn't there.
No, I completely agree with that. I almost feel like this movie could have needed another 15 minutes, and I feel like just with the two of them to really get that emotional impact when, it's a rom-com, when they eventually sort of break up a little bit.
Right,
it happens in all the rom-coms.
I'm gonna ask her to marry me.
Do you plan to? About your family?
Yeah, I just haven't had the chance to meet them. What's going on? Tell me about life. How are you?
This is your white granddaddy come back to haunt me.
What? Now this is my fault?
Another positive I had was I really appreciated that there was no big argument scene between Jonah Hill and London Lauren. I just, anytime they had a problem, they always talked it out, and then the scene was kind of concluded by the end. And I just appreciated that, because I feel like in a lot of romantic comedies, there are these huge scenes of the couples fighting, and they're yelling at each other, and it's crazy.
I'm a fan of that. No, seriously, I'm a fan of that because to me, that's more real life. I mean, I'm not a fighter. I don't, I do talk things out in my real life.
Totally.
And that's good, but it doesn't always work that way.
It's true.
So a good fight, I like to see.
You want to see him get the boxing gloves on and get in the ring there. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I think I put this under one of my positives just because I have seen a lot of romantic comedies, and they're not personally my favorite genre. And I always feel like they can't help but just hit the same beats every single time. And hey, like, I get it. A studio's going to put $1 million behind a project. You want the projects to make money. Look at what past success did. Copy that, you know, and that makes sense. I get that formula for making movies in studios, but at the same time, when you can go outside that a little bit, I always just appreciate it. I'm always like,
Yeah.
thank you. Like, you could have had a big moment here, but you're like, no, let's keep this tame and let's try to change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I just appreciated that, even though the rest of the movie falls under all the cliches romantic comedies do, which, again, it's not a big deal. You want to make a romantic comedy in today's movie world, you're going to have to follow the cliches or no one's going to give you money.
Right.
That's just the truth. So, but then my last positive I had was just some of the lighting I thought was really beautiful. It had a lot of depth. I felt it was very colorful. All the scenes, if you looked in the background, all other rooms were lit and looking pretty. And that's just a lot of time and setup for, and I almost hate to say it, a Netflix movie. Because I feel like Netflix movies sometimes aren't the greatest of quality.
Right.
And I felt like this movie had real production value
Oh,
behind it at points.
it was visually beautiful.
Yeah, it was very visually beautiful.
You know,
The scene-
every
yeah.
every scene, even scenes with two people in a car or what have you, it was high quality work.
Yeah, it really was, and it goes to a lot of, again, like I said, Kenya Barris and taking that cinematographer who he's worked with on a bunch of TV. And although this movie definitely has a TV feel to it,
Yeah,
it doesn't feel very cinematic.
Yeah.
it still works. But a question I wanted to ask about was, and I'm not sure if you remember this because we watched the movie like a week ago now, 2 weeks ago now. Do you remember the transitions between scenes? It would sort of it would cut in like a. Almost like it would like tear, like pages would tear. There were these odd transitions between scenes that
Yeah.
made it feel very much like a music video. I was curious just how you felt about those.
I honestly didn't notice it.
Didn't notice it. That's even better. And I
Yeah.
think that's a lot of the intention behind when you make transitions like those, because I think this movie's trying to establish a vibe and a feel, and it overall didn't work for me, I felt like.
Yeah.
It kind of took me out of points.
Yeah.
Do you have any other positives, or do you want to move on to some of the negatives?
I'm all about the negatives.
All about the negatives. Yeah, I did not love this movie. I just like to talk some good about bad movies because there's always some good. You know, there's a gaffer who worked on You People who did a great job. You know.
Yeah.
But truth be, the biggest issue with this movie, in my opinion, is the script.
Yeah.
Its script is just not great.
Yeah. It was clunky.
It was clunky. The best way I can put it is it tried to do a lot. I think it tried to be this movie about difference in faith, differences in generations, differences in relationships, and bring people together who usually wouldn't be together. But it just all didn't work at the end.
So you want to marry my daughter?
Yes, yes, I do.
Well, Ezra, you could try.
Eddie Murphy, I didn't think he was so bad. He was a little wooden, and to me, compared to Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who just stole the show,
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy, I feel like, needs to be a little bit more funny. It's Eddie Murphy.
Yeah. I mean, just more relaxed. Wooden's a perfect word
Yeah.
for it because he really was just.
I think he had sunglasses on for the majority of the movie.
Yeah, and it was very forced. Everything he said was forced.
Definitely.
You know.
And going even in a little bit more about the script and the characters, another one of my big issues was the writing of Jonah Hill's character. Pretty sure his name was Ezra. He starts and he has this podcast he does with his friend Mo, and they talk about different cultures and they talk about life and they talk about society, and he seems like he's this person who knows a whole lot about everything and about different people and how to treat people and how to be kind. But then whenever he asks his girlfriend's family out to dinner, he's horribly racist. He's terrible. He doesn't know what to say. It felt like two different characters.
Yeah, I agree with that. In fact, the whole podcast premise wasn't really important.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
the whole scheme of things.
Yeah, it really was. It was just one of those things, again, this movie feels very modern. And I think there was a real attempt to have this movie feel modern. And I think having the podcast in there was just trying to, again, just feel modern. Like I said.
Right.
And what was I going to say about the podcast? Oh, yeah. He leaves his job to pursue a full-time podcast. And then it just cuts. And they're in a studio. And there's a crew for this podcast. And I was like,
How did that happen?
how did they do that? I didn't realize it was that successful. I mean, why was he even working the other job
I know.
if they could afford this from the podcast money? Like, I thought that was absurd.
I know. Again, it wasn't developed.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
just
you
wasn't.
it was like once they said something, bam, it happened.
Mm-hmm. Going into my last negative I have here, and it's just gonna, it just is the third act. I mean, they broke up, and then the wedding, and then we're in the end.
Yeah.
We're at the end.
Yeah, that was way too fast, and all of a sudden the parents all got along and loved each other.
Best friends, and they're dancing with each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was wrapped up with a bow.
Yeah, exactly. And for a movie that seemed like it really wasn't trying to be like that. It was trying to do something different, but then couldn't help but just end it like every other rom-com and wrap it up in a bow, and it's perfect and neat, and here you go.
Yeah, it was like, we get 10 minutes to finish this up, but what do we do?
Yeah. And speaking of the third act and that final scene, the one little fun fact about the movie that I kept noticing throughout is there was a lot of weird bits of CGI. The scene where the dad, Jonah Hill's dad, is playing piano and the girlfriend's watching really awkwardly.
Yes.
Very funny scene.
Yeah.
But I kept looking at it, and although I haven't seen anything online talk about this, that piano and the dad, they don't look like they're in the same room to me.
Oh.
They look like it was shot in a completely different area, and then they matched the two shots together. And there's really only one wide that has him in the room, and you can see the other cast members. Other than that, it's just close-ups. And so, that's a scheduling issue right there. That's happens.
Right.
You watch any Marvel movie, and everyone's in their own little domes and talking to each other in their one-shots nowadays.
Right,
And
right.
The other one, which was a lot more noticeable and a lot weirder, was the final kiss between Jonah Hill and Lauren London. I mean, it's like their faces get to here with each other, and then it stops, and they just mold together. And if you look really closely, it's really off-putting looking. And there's even actually a point, a bunch of, I think flowers fall as they kiss.
Yeah.
One of the flowers lands right here on their nose, so it blocks the kiss. And you can also tell that flower is CG. And it was like, what went wrong here? Did one of them just not agree to kiss the other one? Is this a COVID issue? But to wrap it all up, what would you give this movie out of 10?
Honestly, like a 5 or a 6.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think I'm a 5. It is.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfectly average movie.
Yes.
It doesn't quite hit all the beats I think the script wants it to.
Yeah.
I think the script really is aiming to talk about a lot of very topical topics, and it just
it drops.
It drops. It does a little bit, and then it's going along. You're liking it, and then it just ends.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really tie it all back in. It doesn't give you something new to think about with all
No.
these people and religions.
And they really could have.
Yeah.
The opportunity was there because, like I said, it wasn't just biracial. It was an ethnic. It was the religion in there too, which they had 2 strikes against them.
Right.
And that could have been a very interesting movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it just kind of fell short.
Yeah, it
So-
just played out like I mean it just played out like a romantic comedy. It was
Right.
just a comedy. You just get scenes where characters are awkward and do awkward things for like 15 minutes. And sometimes
Right.
it's funny and sometimes it's not.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know. I wish it was more, but it's fine what it is. It's not
It is what it is.
horrible.
It's a good rainy day movie.
Yep.
Or, if you get some time to kill, brainless Netflix watching.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you just have nothing to do on a Saturday,
Yeah.
watch it. You're not gonna just be like, that was the worst thing ever. You'll be like, yeah, that was bad. Well, I think that'll do it for the first episode of Movie Talk. Again,
Great.
Joe, thank you so much for being my first guest.
Thanks
I really
for having
appreciate
me.
it. And to everyone watching, please go watch You People. Although we did not like it, I always recommend you just go and watch all the movies and decide for yourself how you feel about it. And I think that'll do it. Have a good one, everyone.